Can I just get a regular coffee with milk,
You
please?
want regular coffee?
With milk, please. Yeah.
Okay, that will be $5.71.
You got it. All right, we're gonna make this work. There we go.
I think contactless is a very powerful catalyst for accelerating cash to card conversion. In the last 2 years, what we have seen in the US is card penetration growth rate annually has doubled versus what was the average in the prior 5 years. The pandemic was one of the reasons people didn't want to touch cash. There was a lot of e-commerce purchases, but contactless definitely contributed to this growth as well.
It's made a change. It's really made a difference. What it's really made a difference on has been in terms of how it's driving a shift from cash to electronic forms of payment, particularly on the small ticket items, which is really, really important. Because at the end of the day, our model is as much about converting the dollar value of the spend as it is about the number of transactions we can get over our network. And even though it happens to be a $2 transaction, a transaction is a transaction on which we make revenue, on which we can deliver services, and that's really important.
Mastercard introduced PayPass, its first contactless payment system, in 2002, but the technology took some time to gain traction.
I would say we first invested in this many years ago. The adoption rate on this in the early part, even in markets like the UK, Canada, Australia, was fairly slow in the early part. The inflection point of when it really started to hit its stride was when it was used in the transit vertical. So what we figured is, let's get all the transit systems around the globe enabled for contactless technology. That will create muscle memory for the consumer who will like the experience in transit and will use it elsewhere.
How do you judge the revenue proposition for MasterCard with an innovation like that and the adoption and the pace of it?
Look, I mean, for us, we're agnostic as to whether somebody's using the chip technology or the contactless technology or using the mag stripe, which was the old way of doing business. We earn revenues which are quite similar across both of those. The revenue potential and upside for us comes from the fact that now more spend is being done on card-based forms of payment than was being done in the past. So we're converting that cash over to electronic forms of payment, which is where the incremental revenue comes from.
If contactless payments is the current revolution sweeping the payments industry, what's the next one?
I think pay with your smile. So, biometrics, I think that's where it's going to go. And I think we've reached that point that people are sick of too many passwords. People are sick of typing in stuff. And there's also too many wallets and other IDs and stuff that is around. So why don't you just use, everybody has a smile. So just play with your smile, there you go.
How much are you investing in that? How quickly do you see that becoming the next tap and go?
Yeah, so look, I think this is going to take a while. These things have an adoption curve, which typically is fairly flat in the early part, and then you start to see some level of steepness.
Mastercard's next breakthrough may be born in one of its global tech hubs. The company has opened innovation centers in Australia, India, Europe, Canada, and the United States.
These are spaces where we draw in customers, where we draw the local community. We have them in big cities where the latest technologies and the players are all around us. In New York City, it's in Tech Alley, and everybody in the tech industry is around us. It's a point where people want to work and we attract the best talent. And we go, and this brings us back to the CFO, we go and look at our vitality index. So how are our revenues looking? What is generated from new products? What do we see? Is there real momentum? Is there real growth? And if you overlay that and link that back to our tech hubs in these regions where we have them, clearly that is what is driving our new solutions.
From an investment standpoint, we try and make sure we've got our foot in the door in all of these new and emerging technologies, because what we don't want to do is play favorites with one versus the other. We want to make sure we're investing just appropriate amounts of money to have skin in the game, to know that if this thing has got legs to it, we want to be at the inflection point for them to ride out.
In your tech hubs, can you act like Bond, James Bond, in one of the Q movies, and like the laboratories, we walk in and they, you sort of face off and clear the system, and they sort of do this?
There are some people who are privileged in this company who can do that. Not everybody can. And I'm not one of them. I can tell you that.
That's not you?
No, that's not me.